Shalom, shalom. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero, and I'm going to share with you something that normally I usually don't share, and you probably haven't heard, but one of the things I want to do is talk about the story of parental alienation. Now you might ask yourself, well, what is parental alienation all about here? A good friend of mine, Michael Habib, who earlier this morning posted his experience going through a horrendous divorce. And we're talking about within Judaism or within the Jewish community. So this is very specific that I'm talking about. And I promised him, he said, yeah, you should share your vort, as it were, about parental alienation. And it is a horrible thing. Those of you who perhaps never heard of what parental alienation is, it is a syndrome. It is really the most ugliest thing any parent can go through. But the majority of the parents that go through this are men. Parental alienation is a systematic denigration by one parent with the intent of alienating the child against the other parent. In most cases, the purpose of alienation is to gain custody of the child and excludes complete involvement of the father figure in that relationship. Well, what Michael is going through is just that. And the way it begins is appears to be very, very easy. All of a sudden you get a knock on the door by the agency of child protection or family and children that you are now being accused of either a sexual abuse or being a physical abusive parent. This steps in and begins the process in order to stop the male figure in his involvement with the child. Obviously, child abuse of any sort is a very ugly thing and should be taken seriously. But here we find in the parental alienation problem that 95% of the women have utilized that as a weapon to be able to tear away the children of the relationship so that the other parent, mainly the father, would not be able to see, visit, communicate in any way with the father. And obviously that carries a very heavy weight in our current society, where any forms of child abuse or domestic abuse is looked at in a very negative sense. And obviously most of the ones that are affected are fathers who are good fathers, like Michael and myself, who are good fathers, been good fathers, and been treated completely in a negative way by the system. The system is not perfect. The system has a lot of flaws, and those of you who know and have worked in the social sciences know very well how abuse takes place and how the system could easily be deteriorated by this alienation program. But that's not only where it begins. It just begins to accumulate, where all types of false accusation are thrown upon normally the father figure, the father parent in the relationship, and it has an incredible impact on men in particular. In other words, parent alienation, although it comes about with one parent, puts him or her needs and emotions above the best interest of the child. And many fathers usually relinquish, in order so that their children can have at least some sort of a normal life, relinquish all forms of custody and pay thousands of dollars in attorney fees and all types of fees in the struggle to try to retain their custody or shared custody. Obviously here in Florida, most of the courts usually will go for shared custody unless there is something like I just mentioned, a case in which the mother can pull away all the rights to be able to take control of the children. And who gets damaged in this? Well, obviously the majority of the psychologists and social workers will tell you the children get shortchanged. They are the ones that are really, because of this highly conflict separation or divorce, are affected because they get torn away from both parents, or in this case, the father figure in the home. And so as we see this is a rise in problem, Even in the black community, this is rampant. The father has nothing to do with the children after the divorce. As a matter of fact, there's only two things that take place. One, child support. That can't be taken away. That's one other reason why 95% of the women who files divorce, and that's the percentage, you can check that out with the courts. The large number of divorces are filed by the woman with children for two main reasons. One, the custody issue, and two, which is probably in their heads the primary purpose, the child support. And as a result of that, they also get the idea of living off child welfare system by so doing. See, they won't be able to qualify unless they can be able to say, well, I don't have money. And this is where all types of freebies comes into the hand of the woman who has filed for divorce in the courts and has now filed an allegation or an actual report of child abuse, child endangerment, or abusive domestic abuse, just by merely making a statement of that fact when she enters into the court. Courts will take that. The woman will go to legal aid and will get assisted by legal aid. But here's another aspect, especially in the Jewish community. In the Jewish community, you will find that they become all of a sudden very, very compassionate and passionate over the cries of the woman in the community who has gone through a divorce, and the father figure becomes all of a sudden transformed into a demon of sort. And this is exactly what happens in this. And so we find, I do apologize for that interruption, but we do find an incredible situation taking place throughout the world with this issue.
This oceanside verbo is about to become the backdrop for an unforgettable...
It's an incredible day. We'll continue with this thought in another video.